So they had the bees down there, and at that time they had their office building was in the chicken coop. And then later they built the Rothenbuehler lab, but they commandeered a building right there. And there it is again, I believe, which was called the Rothenbuehler Queen Breeding Lab. And that building had to be moved or torn down, and it was moved, and it's in the woods now up here.
That's cool.
I don't know how familiar you are with the area, but coming over here, if you would have turned, where the bee barn used to be, where we stored the equipment, is just now a level lot. And you came up to a stop sign and you turned right to come here. If you'd have turned left and gone around up to a stop sign and then turned left again and crossed the highway, you would see it back in the woods. Maybe. Okay, but this is just early Ohio right here. Now, in the early days of beekeeping, extractors weren't real prominent, and so production of honey was done mostly in comb honey, or if they did produce extracted honey, it came in real little bottles, and that was right about there, that size. You can see the size of these bottles are not real big. And so it was either small or in comb honey. Now when they produced comb honey, they would put the sections, like right there, into these boxes, take them to the grocery store, sell them in the grocery stores in those boxes. So a person wanting comb honey, they'd open up the box, take out the section, put it in a sack, and that was yours. When you took it home, you would cut out the section and put it in a comb honey dish, like those. And these happen to be made by Tierra.
Hello, Jim.
Hello! Come down this way.
Don't walk in your lights.
Okay, these are made by Tierra. The older ones had splayed feet. The newer ones have hexagonal or octagonal feet that they come down. They are made in Indiana by Tierra, and they would be made out of scrap glass, and each color for whatever they had scrap, trying never to duplicate. And so they have had about 28, 29 colors. And then they sold to Home Interiors down in Texas. The last one they produced, I think, was a real dark, deep green. The one down in Texas, the first one, and I think probably the only one they made, was a purple. And I don't think they're making those anymore, but they're collectibles.
What was the time frame on those?
They would start probably in the 1920s.
In the 20s?
Mm-hmm.
Up until when was the last production?
They quit probably 2004.
Oh, okay.
2005.
So recently.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a long run.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have honey pots, salt and pepper shakers, measuring cups. Somebody want to read the brand on this? Who made that? This is called
Montclair.
Yeah, but who actually produces Montclair?
Sears Roebuck.
That's awesome. Sears and Roebuck. Sears had their fingers in everything, and I'll get into that in a minute, but believe it or not, that was actually sold by Sears and Roebuck. Tins are a little more expensive to find.
And was that in the same catalog as their houses?
Probably. That was a Strickmeyer and wife.
cool.
So is this one here, did you see the monarch? It's got a little bee right there.
No, that's awesome.
These are all honey jars. The ones that look like Skeps right here were marketed by Killian out of Illinois. Lakeside right there is in Chicago. And these right here are called the Muth jars
They're reproduced.
out of Cincinnati. You can tell the originals will have no Pontel marks on them. The reproductions will have honey acres on the bottom. Okay, that is a 60. That's how the honey was sold to the government when they bought honey.
60-pound tin.
60-pound can, it'd be 5 gallon.
Are those the tins that they would send out west full of kerosene or fuel, and then they'd get washed out and sent back with honey?
I don't know about that, but you could only put honey in at one time because honey
Would
would eat the tin coating off, and so then everything you
Your
put in
honey's
it
black.
would be black. Now, I've done a little bit of judging. I've judged honey at shows, probably close to 40 years, but I have seen people take 60s, pour the honey out, and believe it or not, honey will separate your flower sources. So you could have light honey and dark honey come out of the same tin.
Oh, wow.
Okay, some more pictures of...
What's this? I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
What is
That's
that?
just
Those
an
are just-
advertising gimmick.
Now,
However, they did have...
and I have seen these in use. This is an aluminum cord foundation on the comb. In World War II, they needed the wax for the war efforts, so they made aluminum core in the frames.
Just like taking aluminum foil, running it through the foundation mill. So instead of foundation...
And I have saw
Oh, sorry.
frames like this in beehives, still in use.
Really?
Now, the reason these kind of fell out of favor is the aluminum conducts heat.
Sure.
And so,
Don't let
But-
the scrappers get a hold of
No
it.
kidding.
but those, yeah, you
It's
can,
amazing
they
the
did
wax was more valuable than the metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Maybe,
Well-
maybe they're making B-52s out of wax.
Maybe.
they needed the wax
Well, keep in mind this.
to lubricate the gun barrels too.
The cyclotron, the big electromagnet to make the nuclear bombs, they had a shortage of copper for the war effort, so they made all the electrical wiring out of silver.
Wow.
20,000 tons of
See,
silver.
this is just a...
That's an advertising
That's an
gimmick, so-
advertising gimmick. That never was used in
I
the
would
beehive.
think,
However,
my
I have
goodness.
seen people put door screen, just regular door screen in as the foundation. And the bees work it fine.
And they did. They drew it out.
And I've seen people
They
like
make
me that
their
don't put any
own
foundation in and the bees draw it out just fine.
Yeah, well,
Amazing.
see, back in the 20s, again, people, they were very, very frugal with their money. The plastic hive that was once sold by the Kelly Company, they sold these shallows, a plastic lid, inner cover, and a plastic bottom board. The bottom boards usually caved,
Warped.
so they went through some modifications on those. The inner covers would warp, and the tops, if you put your smoker on it, would put on. These weird hives, so we have like the Swedish hive, and then we have some Norwegian hives, the Italian hive, the BC hive. In 1995, EAS met here, and we had to have something for people to see, so we bought all these hives from foreign countries for it to show and tell.
Can we open up that WBC hive? Or?
Yeah, it's actually a hive within a hive.
Wow.
I only seen pictures. And so when you wanted to work it,
Just a
you had to
fancy
remove
outer
that,
cover.
remove this.
Move that in sections.
You would think overwintering it would help maybe.
It'd give it
Yeah.
dead
The
airspace.
insulation,
Yeah.
but not much
The other thing
circulation.
is a
Or
lot
ventilation,
of
I should
things.
say.
Now this is like an American hive inside.
Sure.
See, I thought
But-
they were like top bar hives, or was that the ware hive?
That's the Wooster hive.
The top bar hives are like the Kenya top bar hive. And,
Well, I meant like
It's
the
a-
ware.
yeah,
What he was
but-
talking about was
Where it
the,
don't have actual frames.
yeah. Now, usually when you have a top bar hive, you're going to find that it has slanted sides.
right.
Or,
Except the Tanzanian has regular square sides.
well, then they must have frames to go in.
Yeah, it uses standard
Because the advantage of the slant,
frames.
they
It's
found that
stability.
the bees do not build
You don't
on
know.
an angle.
33 degrees.
Well, I don't know what it is.
That's
It
what I
could,
just
yeah,
built.
it's some angle.
It's 33 degrees.
But top bar hives, disadvantage of it, now you're getting comb. 1 year, you're trying to pick it up, and it's very delicate. And you could lose your comb.
If you want to harvest honey, that's the only way to do it, is to destroy it.
Okay.
You can uncap it and put it
Well,
in
they do
a
have
tangential extractor, regular 3-frame hand
Right,
crank,
they do have
and
where
you
it
can
pins
extract
in.
from there. The Sweetie one is flat like a pancake that you
Right.
can extract with it. But
Well, Jim had one here
Thank you.
at Wooster in the spring at the Tri-County thing. He had an extractor.
Because I've extracted off my top bar.
Also, you have to worry about if you're keeping bees down in the tropics and so forth, the hot weather. If you use a radial extractor and its first year out for the comb,
Yeah, blow it apart.
it
can blow
will
it.
just collapse all your comb to the top bar, the heat. Okay, that's a queen bee hive. This is a double ventilated Kirchhoff 2-queen system hive. Actually, I bought this hive in Washington, state of Washington. Had it shipped here. My shipping was twice as much as I paid for the hive.
A bunch of drawers.
No,
you
it's
can
two
see
queens. The entrance is here for this stack. That's an excluder. And then common supers going up.
storage.
And this
Interesting.
side is another queen.
So this is a queen excluder here?
That's a queen excluder. there.
Okay. Whoa.
Okay.
That's
And the entrance for this one is over on that side.
Wow.
And I put the boxes on backwards because we have holes here. And they should be on the other side. Okay. Over here we have different smokers through the years. This is by no means all of them. But the very first ones were something similar to a tin can, light a tin or fire in a tin can and sling it around. And then they're pipe smokers. This is a German smoker back here. The black one has a wind-up motor.
Wow.
So you wind up the motor, and then you have a lever to let the motor, the fan go, and then you just move it to where you want the smoke. This is the electronic bee smoker. It emits a sound, you know, like dogs can't hear this,
Yeah,
but you can and all. It doesn't work worth a hoot. Aluminum smoker, stainless steel smokers, copper smokers. This is a Clark cold blast. There's a difference between cold blast and regular because what happens, you have the fire down or up, let's see, how is this? You have the fire here, but your air you pump in goes above it. So you are not taking the smoke through the flame.
So it's working on a vacuum principle.
Kind
Would
of,
that be
yeah.
cooler smoke that way?
Supposed to.
Yeah.
Supposed to.
And this here in the corner, swarm trap or swarm catch?
That's
Yeah,
a
swarm catching
swarm
bag.
catcher, yeah.
Neat.
And then there's
Is
Skeps.
that an old feed sack?
It could be.
And they must just
No,
pull
it's
that
Too thin.
pull the string tight to keep
Yeah.
them in there.
Up there.
Neat.
Don't break it.
And there's
Yeah.
all different kinds of patents, or not patents, but ideas on that. I saw just the other day a guy had a pole with a bucket rigged up.
Yeah, made one last year.
And
It fell off.
so, you know, that's it.
Thank you.
This
Oh, yeah.
this board and this one are dedicated to the root company and to the data company. I used to work up at the root company for a little bit.
Did you up in Medina? Yeah.
I was, yeah. They have quit selling bee supplies, but
Yeah, only
I
candles
have an
now.
extractor
Only
from
candles.
young roots.
Oh, you do?
It was my grandparents. I still use it.
Hold on to
I've
that.
also got some root excluders.
And it's a
on to that
plastic, the tub outside it, but I still use it.
okay, that was one of the last ones they made. They went to Rubbermaid, special contract for the bucket on that.
Neat.
They were good extractors, but the problem is, with time, that bucket would crack.
Oh, yes.
Brittle.
And now you have, what do we do?
Right.
It's worthless.
Yeah.
Unless you can find some. This is the one that was used at Iowa State back in the 20s, and Rothenbuehler and Vic Thompson, when they brought it out here. But there's all kinds of. This is the best frame spacer you can get. They don't make them anymore. The reason it's so good,
Behind
it has
glass.
round pegs.
All I see is myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's got a setting that says behind glass, but I see my head and yours.
So, what'd it take?
Oh, now you're going to make me find
Yeah, I never heard of a camera with the behind glass setting. Now I want to see. Still, it's kind of cool. The little boxes with the slide down
Toothpick?
toothpicks. That's really neat.
Queen holders. Yeah.
Little queen cages.
All kinds of queen holders.
Somebody had a lot of time to make this.
On the bottom, there's a hive. This was made of aluminum,
The aluminum beehive.
and again, it transferred the heat so well. The people that made that, different frequencies, and so you can tell an Africanized bee from an Italian bee by the sound that they can.
Not by the number of stings on your face
No.
while you're trying to install it.
No, but anyway, yeah, some.
Buster, huh?
They, that is so to identify the African bees. I know this feeder right here.
Yeah.
Is mine, but I don't know how it works because it goes in just like that into the hive. So whether you put a rag in there and it wicks up, or whatever, I don't know, in the jar. In other words, they don't climb down in the jar. I know that.
Has it got a series of small holes in it, or just one larger hole?
Just one large one, I think.
You would almost have to use a
So
wick.
I think you have to put a wick in there.
Yeah. Not the one from your kerosene.
What are the three notches down here if you look in the entrance of it?
I don't know. But way back in the... And I always gave him credit for it. And he does have a patent on this. But there's other people earlier that developed this kind of hive. The advantage is that you can unclip the doors and go into the bottom super without bothering the top. The disadvantage is bees do not like to go from super to super, so in winter they're going to perish usually. This is a star hive, very similar to a a Langstroth.
Wow.
only it uses shorter frames and so forth. So it's like a,
The staples to space it.
That's for
kind
spacing.
of a cool idea.
that's
Yeah.
that's for spacing. And they sold
Now-
those staples as late as 1960
And this being glass, was this put in for display purposes, or was that?
for
the-
observation. Yeah.
So that's the way it was normally built?
Langstroth did the same thing.
Really? That's cool.
And let's see. And you put foundation in these. The way you can tell is you have a groove to put the foundation down in. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but when you put the foundation in a frame like this, you put it in, you heat up your wax in a little tin bucket or coffee can or whatever.
Over top your kerosene lantern.
Take a spoon, a serving spoon preferably, bend the heck out of it so you have now a thin nozzle,
Funnel type thing, right?
and then you fill it and dip and then let it pour. And about the time it goes down and then you reverse, it will cool and there your foundation is in.
Took a copper tube, smashed the end of it.
Now,
put down
you've
in
all
there,
seen
fold your thumb over to create a vacuum.
Nice.
you've all seen these tubes with a handle and a hole.
Yeah.
Those don't work or sit them.
Nah, I do the same thing with just a hunk of copper tube.
Yeah. You have to have more flow out
What is? Oh, the
Entrance.
entrance.
for ventilation.
Look at that. That's slick.
Yes.
That's slick.
Well, see, when Root got going, Root and Dadant were working about the same startup time. And Dadant was just a little ahead of Root in years. And so Root went to write articles for Dadant under the name Novice. Published in ABJ and in Bee Culture. And they actually produced equipment together. So it's not unlikely that in the early equipment you'll have a Root decal and a Dadant decal on the same equipment. Just tells you that this was the time when they worked together.
Mr. Shreve.
In the early times,
Gosh, that's what my extractor looks like.
Is
That
it the trash
plastic
can?
one, yes. Yeah, that's what it looks like exactly.
that is
See,
it.
you got a museum piece.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
It's got a different date on the bottom.
in the extractor world, Root produced 9 extractors at one time for different frames. In other words, if you went up to the Root company and you told them, well, I have a Gallup hive or a Dansenbaker hive or a, I can't think of all of them, but
Sure.
there were 12 different hives that he made. American beehive, whatever. He made frames and equipment for all of those, and so consequently he made equipment to support those. And your early extractors, this is an early one. Took an American frame. And you can tell this was an early frame because of the V where the bees would hang to form the beeswax. So that would guide your
So
comb.
you didn't put any foundation in
No
that?
foundation. That V made.
We paint little beeswax
Yeah.
on there. There you go.
Now the
No, you don't even paint any beeswax on. They'll
They-
attach it on.
The strange thing about this, and why I don't think this works real well, is the frames would go in just like that, just like they hung in the hive. The problem, why I see that as this problem, is there's an approximately 21-degree angle that they build their comb at. And that won't line up to extract well.
Right.
So these can't be that efficient. But it is a tangential type extractor, which means you spin until you think 1/2 of the wax is out
By then you've crushed the
off
cone.
this side.
You start out one side, do the other, and then come back
and then come
finish
back.
yours.
You have to. It takes two reversals to get all the wax out.
Wow.
Or wax? No, I'm sorry.
The honey.
Honey. Then they came with the reversible baskets, and then they came with the radials. Over in this corner is a machine, and this machine is the machine that makes the rolls for foundation. And Root Company had only 2 of those. And one of them is here, and the other one, when I left Root, was still at Root.
Get the picture with all the hives in this tiny itty bitty little yard. The bottom picture over there. There's just probably hundreds of hives. Look at that.
Well, in the yard at Roots, I think there are 405.
Wow.
And nowadays, you put that many hives in a yard,
Oh,
you overpopulate, and your hives aren't going to do diddly squat.
right.
Kind of diminished return.
Yeah. In this case, we have, well, that's the machine that makes the foundation rolls. And
How
the
many
18
cells to an inch did they have that set at?
It varied. It varied. This machine over here I bought, and it's too big for the use. I mean, but the bees will use it. The only problem is see, bees do unusual things with wax. Let's say you have a tree, and they've put a comb up and down, and so they've oriented it so they want it that way. Storm comes by, blows the tree down, and that tree stays there for 3, 4, 5 months. You know what happens inside that tree?
The bees move down further down in the cavity. I've seen that before. When a bee tree gets cut down and just left on its side,
But
they
then
move
they
down
will
and then-
reorient that comb.
Yeah.
So now it's oriented up on the side.
Well, I saw them abandon the old comb and just draw a new comb to.
If there's room.
Yeah.
Most of the time that I've seen, there wasn't enough room, so they just would
Reworked it.
revamp it. And so, if they have comb that's the wrong size, like too big, or like in the other room I said door screen, they will make it the right size.
Sure.
Lusby out in Arizona, you have what you think is enough wax on here, then you can scrape it off with a scraper, and now you have a sheet of wax that you can put through foundation mill. If you didn't want to do that, in England at one time they had a device, just kind of a tray, had the embossing. You'd pour wax in there and put it together like a sandwich, and then press, make you a sheet of foundation. Here's that wax tube fastener in here we're talking about, an uncapping plane there. Over in that corner of the display case are some taper molds. I've yet to find anybody that actually has success in that, because if you use pure beeswax in there, it doesn't want to release. And so they have now Steve Forrest of Brushy Mountain. They were making tapers and molds like this, but he was using a lot of tallow, and then he was getting them to release that way. But if you're going to use pure beeswax, those would be the worst molds you can come up with. Okay, we have extractors of different kinds, tangential, radios, and so forth. This is a mixing tank in case you wanted to make creamed honey. Okay, now this is where we can walk through here now, but when I got here this afternoon, they had filled this room with other stuff, and I don't know where they got it. But this is an American Hive replica. Jim too built this one. This is a Langstroth replica. I built that one. These Skeps, Jim had bees in this Skep not too long ago. But anyway, those Skeps are new, and it used to be that on the Skeps you put bees in, and then when you went to harvest the honey, you kill the bees and cut out the honey and bees and so forth. Then they got to be where they could make Skeps the same size. So they put the mouth of one up to the mouth of the other, invert them, beat on the sides of the Skep to drum the bees up. So if you've ever heard the words drumming the bees or whatever, that's what they're doing when they're beating on the sides of the Skeps to get them to run up into the new Skep.
Okay, now how about the term the bee's knees? Where did that come from?
I don't know, but I'll give you one with honeymoon.
Oh yeah, that I know
The
that.
sweetness only lasts for a month.
I know that one, but the bee's knees I didn't know.
I don't know on bees' knees. I can't help you there. But on honeymoon, when back in the Nordic times, when a couple got married, they'd give them some wine that was actually made out of honey.
Mead.
So it was mead.
Have you made mead?
And their chore was to take that with them, and that would have to be consumed over the next 30 days or on their honeymoon.
Hope they gave them more than one bottle.
That was just supposed to take the wedding night jitters off.
But it does go back to the time when young people got married and they gave them
Yeah, he said it's supposed to increase fertility. And
well, I don't know.
It just takes the wedding night jitters off. Back when people had wedding night jitters.
There's nothing really special about that first hive except that that was the way it came, except for the colored paint. I painted the color on. But at one time, Root did sell wood-burned hives.
Neat.
And so...
Did you charge more for that than the standard hive, I'm assuming? I mean...
I think they did.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Who spent the time?
This is Langstroth's cottage down at Oxford. Picture of him.
I wish I had this kind of...
I'll get back to these Skeps, the newer ones. They have the technique down so they can make Skeps that will super. And believe it or not, this goes back into the 1800s. Very good condition for that. But the door is open. This side, the top, the back, and the back side are all perfect. That hive was in a wagon.
Wow.
So that this was the only door, when it was closed, that's where the bees came in and out. That's the only place that was exposed to the weather.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would stack them up side by side so they
On
had
the
multiples
wagon,
in the
yeah.
wagon.
Yeah.
You know, overseas they still, well...
Look at how decorative.
Yeah, now these...
I gotta wonder, because the 1800s, they didn't typically...
Now here, these... what is that? Slovenian? Is that Hungarian? Anyway, those are entrance fronts, so that bees know the color, so that helps orient the hives.
We're in the one with the bear on it. Yeah. I want to go home.
That's a heck of a lot of artwork to be done just for the front of it.
But that's
Out in the weather, all over it.
that's 5 different fronts. Yeah.
This is amazing, who spent the time.
This is Langstroth's cottage down at Oxford. Picture of him.
I wish I had this kind of.
They,
Me too.
I'll get back to
My
these
kids
skeps,
both
the
have
newer ones.
really awesome
They have the
pictures
technique
of
down so they can make skeps that
And
will
I can do
super.
stick people pretty well. We went to Bolivar, 77 down to Bolivar, and then Zora's just off on 212.
It's still in operation.
No,
It's tourist.
it's tourist
And they're
trap.
trying to, because of the old levees, they're trying to actually make them move some of the historical part of it.
Down in this display case are some